Hello, everybody. I am German, but I live since more than 40 years in Syria, and it was always my attitude to build bridges between the Syrian and the European or Western peoples. When I started my life in Syria in 1982, I was very impressed of the beautiful handicrafts that were still produced in Syria in these days. And as I had learned a lot of textile techniques in my childhood in Germany, I used this knowledge and started a workshop for traditional textile handicrafts of the Levant, together with Palestinian refugee and Syrian village women. I learned the old techniques. Many of them are already forgotten, and I had to explore it again and teach it to the young generation. And I made a research about the meaning of patterns, the meaning of colors, history of embroidery, and very important, the social impact embroidery has on society. And I wrote a book about this. Through these studies, I've learned a lot about the importance of tradition and cultural bindings for self-esteem and national identity. Today I want to speak about my work with village women in remote areas in northern Syria. They have a certain special kind of embroidery, and I worked with them for years, especially in the village Hoyer al-Has. When I visited the village for the first time, I found a healthy society. People were poor, very poor, but they organized their life in harmony. They were living together in an equal, cooperative, and peaceful way. They raised their children to become responsible members of society, and they helped each other. Nobody was left alone. Here you see the houses. They are built brick houses, which the villagers built themselves. And it's a very dry area, so they have to buy the water and they store it in underground cisterns. When I offered the women to work with them to produce, develop, and market their embroideries in our shop in Damascus, they were enthusiastic. An old woman said, "I was embroidering all my life, but now my children and grandchildren, they think embroidery is old-fashioned. They don't appreciate it anymore. With your project, I can embroider again, and this makes me happy." And a young woman said, "You brought life to the village. We were often bored. We had nothing to challenge ourselves. Now we embroider, we discuss our embroideries together, we try to become better, and I always feel very satisfied when I have done a good job." I think that recognition of society was more important for them than even the financial incentive. They are sitting together, chatting here, and embroidering in front of the workshop in the village, and proudly presenting their embroideries. With the best embroideries, we were able to make an exhibition in Damascus. The embroideries are very colorful, and with these colors, they express their love for their village and for their homeland. And with the best embroideries, we were able to make an exhibition in Damascus, and it was very successful, and we sponsored the profit of the exhibition for a project in the village. We rented a bus to send children to school. There is their primary school in the village, but the secondary school is 15 kilometers far away, and there is no transport. And as you can see, the first year we had 15 children, majority were boys, but this changed quickly. And in 2010, we were able to send 70 children to school from 2 villages, and the majority were girls. And after the war, I was happy to hear that many of these students were able to study during the war in Aleppo University, and they were mainly girls while the boys served in the army. The war started in 2011, And in 2012, the area became a war zone. The village got under heavy fire. People died and others fled panic-stricken and became refugees somewhere inside and outside of Syria. They experienced a long odyssey from one area to another, often got caught between fighting groups and escaped again. And they spent their last money and sold their sheep, their main source of income, in order to return to the area under the control of the state. But many of them are still in the north, in refugee camps in the area under Turkish control, and they are not able to return. Their houses are robbed. Doors, windows, electric lines, wells are destroyed, nothing. And they have no money to return. Even the way to return, the transport, is too expensive. They cannot afford this. In 2016, I was able to return to the area for the first time. And I found totally empty villages, destroyed houses, and as you can see here, and I didn't find any of the former inhabitants who had really become friends, and I was not able to help them. So in 2017, I made an exhibition in memory of these village artists, and through television and internet, they got to know that I'm still in Syria. They contacted me and asked me, they were in urgent need for work. They asked me and at the end convinced me to work again. But it's not the same at all. I'm working now with about 60 of the former 1,000 embroideresses, and they are scattered all over Syria. I cannot visit them all. We have to keep contact through WhatsApp, and because fuel is very expensive, and we are selling our embroideries for the same price like before the war. But before the war, 50% of the price went to the embroideresses. Now, with the boycott, the sanctions, the international boycott against Syria, and of course with the boycott, the development of smuggling and mafioso structures, everything has become very expensive. And so we have to spend much more money for materials, transport, marketing, and things like this, so that only 20% goes to the embroideresses. But this is not the only problem. The people have lost their environment. They have lost their comfort zone where they felt comfortable, and therefore also the embroideries have changed. They used to embroider the houses like dancing in the landscape, colorful, and now they often embroider it lined up in dull colors, or they embroider their experience during the war, like Islamistic fighters attacking the village, fire in the village, people fleeing their life in tents and in the open land, and Syrian airplanes attacking the Islamist fighters. They have lost the inspiration of a happy living together. Often they don't have electricity, and they embroider in the light of the spot of their mobile phone. We have decided to start a new project. We want to rebuild one of the villages so that at least the villagers of one village will give them their beloved environment back again. Together with friends, with the help of friends and customers, and architects from University of Damascus. We rebuilt the houses, we restore the wells. We establish workshops in the village, like textile handicraft, preservation of food, and glass upcycling, so that the returning villagers can find a job. We hope that we can give at least as an example for rebuilding Syria, one village, their beloved village environment back again. To replant the trees and to build the houses, this is one thing. What is much more difficult and challenging is to rebuild the scattered society and to rescue the culture. But this is very necessary, because otherwise the people get lost in refugee camps and slum areas around the big cities with their twofold paucity: a lack of resources as well as a lack of tradition, culture, and hope for the future. I think that mutual understanding between the peoples is very important, and actually a precondition for a peaceful, equal, and respectful living together, to avoid animosities and at the end to avoid wars. We are not so different from each other. Europe has outstanding cultural achievements, but also the peoples of the Levant, through their long and successful tradition, they have created a treasure, a cultural treasure for mankind that influenced European development in many ways. And we should not forget this. And thank you.